We've been joined by Altaf Hussain Wani Sahab. He's a Kashmiri leader. And it's rare to have him in the studios, but nevertheless, sometimes we have to push him to come here, and he does agree to. Wani Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us.
Thank you very much.
Wani Sahab, the International Day of Victims of Enforced Disappearances is being observed across the world. Thousands of Kashmiris, as we speak, have been detained by the Indian forces in the occupied valley since their illegal occupation. Relatives of these people are still on the path, waiting for their loved ones to return. They are not being told whether they are alive or they are dead. Some of these people have disappeared since a number of years. What is the fate of these Kashmiris and their families, and what is being done to date? What has been done to date?
You see, this enforced disappearances or involuntary disappearances, it is being called the crimes against humanity. When this convention against the enforced or involuntary disappearances was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. And we see that this convention says that no one should be subjected to the enforced disappearances, even in war, even in the circumstances of war or in emergency situations. But what is happening in occupied Kashmir, what you said, we have seen from 1989 onwards, more importantly, that the people were arrested from their homes by the Indian military, by their paramilitary forces, and then they never returned back. And what was told that they have ran away from the detention centers, they have done this, they have done this, and until now we see over some estimates say more than 10,000 people have disappeared in occupied Jammu and Kashmir from 1989 till date, 10,000 plus people. But what is the fate of those people? We don't know. It's not only that a person has disappeared, it's that this stigma associated with his family, his the victim's wife, those have assumed in Kashmir the name of half widows and half wives. Their families have searched for them from pillar to post, from one area of India to another, from one jail of Indian occupied Kashmir to another detention center, but they could not find them. And unfortunately, the convention also says that you cannot have the sacred detention centers. And while I will tell you, in 2012, a survey was conducted by the 4 special rapporteurs of the United Nations Human Rights Council, the Working Group on Enforced Disappearances, the Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Executions, the Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders, and a Working Group on Arbitrary Detentions. These were the 4. They conducted a joint survey throughout the world, and they found 420 sacred detention centers in occupied Kashmir. And these were centers which were not declared. There are some declared detention centers which you commonly know, this Papa 2, this is Central Jail Srinagar, this is Rangret, all that. But there were some 420 sacred detention centers in occupied Kashmir where people were tortured, they were tortured to death in some places, but people did not know what has happened to people. It came to the light. Firstly, when the Parveena Ahangar, Parvez Imroz and Khurram Parvez, when they launched the ADP, Association of Parents of Disappeared Persons, they started working on that, started protests for that, because Parveena's own son was arrested. He was taken by the forces in daylight from her home and then never returned back. So this happened to them. And then she arranged that Association of Parents of Disappeared Persons. They started protests in Srinagar. They started looking for them here and there, but they could not find it. And in 2009, then Anjana Chatterjee, a sociologist, a professor from the California, she traveled to Kashmir. Her NGO was International Tribunal for Peace and Justice. They and the coalition of civil society, they had unearthed some 400 plus mass graves in the Uri Tehsil of Baramulla district in occupied Kashmir. It was in 2009. And then it came into the limelight that these are the people who have disappeared at the time, and those were dumped in unmarked mass graves in Kashmir. And it got the attention of international organizations. It got the attention of UN. UN Human Rights Office also issued notices to the government of India about these, and also the special reports. Also the working group on enforced disappearance till then has been continuously reporting on these enforced disappearances in occupied Kashmir.
You know, Wani sir, we talk about, reporting of the enforced disappearances. You talk about the human rights organizations that have been talking about it. You've talked about the United Nations that have talked about it. You talk about 420 detention centers across the Indian Hill Valley. What does India stand to gain from all of this?
So I was coming that again and again, it has been the India's kind of talking when you say that India has never obliged to the international conventions, India has never obliged to the international covenants, India never obliged to any of the international obligations which they had. They had an international obligation by virtue of the UN Security Council resolutions not to do such human rights violations in occupied Kashmir. They had pledged at that time, we are in Kashmir to defend the dignity, sovereignty and property of people of Kashmir. Now they have taken everything of Kashmir is there. So India is arrogant because of India was not made accountable. That's the problem which is there, that the accountability of India has not been held by the international community so far. When I was talking about that, they unearthed these mass graves in occupied Kashmir. Then at that time, the UN Special Rapporteur also visited the Indian occupied. They visited India and then Indian occupied Kashmir, and they said this is the Armed Forces Special Power Act, which overrides the right to life, and this is the reason for these enforced disappearances in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and called for the repeal of that law. And at that time, he met then in occupied Kashmir, there used to be a Human Rights Commission. At that time, Justice Faruqi was heading that Human Rights Commission, and Justice was very vocal about human rights. This was told me by the Special Rapporteur himself, that because soon the Special Rapporteur came back to Geneva, the Justice Faruqi was removed from the post of chairperson of the Human Rights Commission of State Human Rights Commission. But then the State Human Rights Commission also at that time has ordered for investigation in some of the graves in the Punch, Rajouri and other places. They found more 700 more graves in these places, and those places which were unmarked, and they were mass graves. And this was found that there were the camps already installed at that place, and those camps, those military installations were taken away, and there were the graves in that. Those were those detention centers where the people were taken, they were tortured, they were killed, and they were dumped over there. When this got the international attention, all of these newses, but what happened after that, India never obliged to any international. Then I'll tell you that EU Subcommittee on Human Rights, they had a hearing on these.
And you've gone to the EU many a times to highlight the Kashmiri's point of view.
At that time, I was not there. Our some friends from Kashmir, Parvez Imroz, witnessed over there. He testified there how we have found this. Anjana Chatterjee was, Sardar Amjad Yusuf from Azad Kashmir, he was there. They all testified there in the UN Human Rights Subcommittee. But what was found at that time, UN Human Rights Subcommittee asked government of India to have a forensic investigation of these mass graves, so that the people could know who are there. So loved ones who are searching for their loved ones, they can know where is whether he is dead, whether he is alive, where he is, so they can do their burial through the proper religious manners. But India did not agree to it. Even the EU said that they will help out India in providing all the technical as well as financial support to do this. But the government of India did not agree to that, because they had done it. Already in one case was proved in Kashmir. I will tell you. It was Abdur Rahman Padar case, and one of those of that when those, in case of Chatti Singhpura, when they carried out a massacre of 6 and then killed 5 Bakrwals there, and they were dumped in a cave and said that these were the foreign terrorists and all that. That was also exposed by the India's own agency. That was the India's national agency. CBI, they inquired about that, and they said that army's officer from brigadier, their colonel, major, and one of the police officers, they are responsible for all this, and one of their collaborators, they have done it for the rewards and for awards and all that. And Indian military has been doing it because the Indian the government had already provided them the impunity through Armed Forces Special Powers Act. You cannot be tried in any court of law. You cannot be asked why you have killed the person, why you have taken out in custody and you have not produced him in any of the court. So you killed them and you dumped them. Nobody was to ask you. So this has created this epidemic of enforced disappearances in occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and that has given birth to more than 3,500 what we call them. They have assumed the title, unfortunately, the half widows and half wives. And you can see those women who have to feed their children, they have to come out. On one hand, they don't have their husband with them. The breadwinner is in. They don't know where that is. They cannot remarry. That's one stigma associated, and under the Muslim law, they couldn't have hire the properties and all that. So these have put the Kashmiri woman in a great distress in occupied Kashmir because of these stigmas associated with it, because of the economic their conditions, because of their financial weaknesses and all that. And we have seen so many mothers. I could remember one is the living legend, the Parveena Ahangar, who has won the RAFTO award for his human rights work along with the Parvez Imroz Sahab. And there are many others, like one was the Mowgli, an elderly woman. Her son, she was always there on the Wednesday in Pratap Park to protest and to ask for whereabouts of his son, but she lost her life waiting for that her son will come back one day or the other day. She will receive news. Not only she, there are thousands of such women who lost their lives during this period of time, waiting for their sons, waiting for their husbands who have disappeared during this time. So the people whose loved ones have disappeared, their families have endured a great, I will say,
and continue to endure
and
this
continue
great
that sufferings are continued, and that is continuing in Kashmir. But unfortunately, as you rightly said, that what happens then? The problem is, we have always discussed these problems, that the United Nations mechanisms and international human rights organizations, they can name and shame. They can only.
But they are doing that. They are naming and shaming. But then, to what extent will they do that? Will they move one step further and exert some kind of action? And if they do so, when they do so, do you feel that this action will be accepted? The special act will be accepted.
See, when the first report on the Kashmir came in the United Nations Human Rights Council by the Office of the High Commissioner, then High Commissioner Punas Riyad Al-Zayad, when he presented that report, in that report, this enforced disappearances was one of the important things, where he said that this needs to be investigated. And that High Commissioner recommended to the Council to establish a commission of inquiry, because that's the mandate of the Council, to establish a commission of inquiry, so that they can have that commission of inquiry, and that commission of inquiry can do that work on that. But neither India agreed, India did not agree to that. India did not even accepted that report. They said this report is malicious, this report is fallacious, it has been done in the by the collaboration of some. So that is the Indian response always. Like we have seen that enforced disappearances, the special this working group has been continuously reporting on the situation of Indian occupied Kashmir. But what Indians do, those who were instrumental in exposing these things, like Khurram Parvez, he is behind the bars because he was the one exposing these things. He is behind the bars. The office of the Coalition of Civil Society is closed. The Office of Association of Parents of Disappeared Persons is closed. Parveen Angri is not allowed to work on this subject. So what they do, the people who are doing it outside, like this Anjana Chatterjee and others, they were India used their influence even there to throw them out of their jobs where they were previously working, but now they have their own business and they are still working on it. And India also alleges us, the people like me and others who are working on these things, who expose India's human rights record at international levels. They say we are doing it on behest of somebody or that. They don't. They have no a shame. They don't feel any shame about this. That 10,000 people have disappeared in occupied Kashmir. You have been telling to the people that they have crossed over the line of control, but we say you go and investigate those unmarked mass graves which your forces have created. Let us know the truth. Unfortunately, India is creating hue and cry all over the world of its democracy,
just to mask what the reality of it.
All it, and we know all that they have silenced the Kashmiri majority by the cries of the minority, which are made loud and loud by the Indian government and their stories. And unfortunately, this the people of Kashmir, the majority people of Kashmir who have faced the Indian repression for last 35 years especially through military repression, those are forced to remain silent. Those are forced not to talk about it, because India has closed all those structures which expose. You might have seen yesterday's news where the Indian government has put against Khurram Parvez what they have said, that he has produced this structures of violence, the torture. These are the two reports which he produced, and that is why he is a terrorist. Why he produced those two reports, and why Mr. Wani and others did expose these reports at international level. So they are the collaborators of the other agencies and all
Wani
that.
Sahab, this fear, this uncertainty that has been going on since decades, 34 years, 35 years, and nothing is happening, nothing constructive is happening, whether it be enforced disappearances, whether it be all the other brutalities that the Kashmiris are subjected to. Till which point is this going to continue? What is going to be the tipping point in your point of view?
See, I think that it will continue until India learns a lesson. You see, there is time. There is a time always that you cannot go unaccounted for a long time. It's already a very long time. You have not been made accountable. But there is a time there will be accountability. The people have not given up. They continue their struggle. Even if you do anything. Now, today you might have seen the Indian Foreign Minister's statement about that we are not going to talk to Pakistan. 370 has made the Kashmir issue is now done.
Close, yes.
So there is nothing. But he forgets that to them it was already done, but it is there. It is because it is in the hearts of the people of
It is also an unresolved
It is unresolved on the United Nations Agenda Security Council. India, which aims to become the Security Council member, will have to rethink about its policies, about its way of doing with the international obligation, international law. A country which does not oblige itself to the Security Council resolutions has no, I think, they have no the moral that they can become the member of the
Yes,
Security
that is
Council.
true, but you know, unfortunately, the geopolitics and the geostrategics of the current time state a very different story.
It keeps on changing. We have seen in World War I what happened at that time and how this United Nations came into existence. If the United Nations keeps on doing the same things, then the power corridors will change. I think there will be new.
We are all looking forward to, Wani Sahab, to these power corridors changing and India finally, being, caught in whatever it has been doing, not only in illegally occupied Kashmir, but also within India as far as its minorities is concerned.
What is happening in India, throughout India, you have seen the way they created a menace of rap in Kashmir, the Indian forces. Now whole of the India is engulfed in those rape cases, because everybody thinks that there is no penalty for it, so we can go for it. We have seen the doctors doing the same thing in the Calcutta hospital. We have seen the same thing happening to a 9-year girl in Mumbai. We have seen same thing happening in the now in Jharkhand and other places. So whole of the India has been engulfed in these cases.
True.
Because of that, India gave a free license to its forces in Indian occupied Kashmir. They did it there, but similarly, they have given them the free license to make people disappear in occupied Kashmir, but those people, when trained for this, they will do in other parts of
We are
India
looking
also.
forward to finally India being put in the chambers of the ICC and the ICJ, and the necessary action taken on all that it has been doing since the last decades, and some kind of relief for the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, whether it be enforced disappearances, whether it be the other brutalities. Thank you very much, Altaf and Wani Saab, to have joined us, Kashmiri leader, in the studios, discussing the enforced disappearances that have been happening since 1989, and we are now in 2024, around 10,000 enforced disappearances, and the number continues to increase. Thank you very much, Wani Saab, to have joined.